I realized that I left my good microphone at the station, so I had to run in here to make sure that this sounded okay.
Ah,
So,
dude, you're the
so
man.
that's why I was hustling and a few minutes late, and you
Ah,
got this
man.
ugly green room set up behind me, but it's all
I
good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's nice of you. Everything well?
everything is good. I listened to your latest episode, and it was really good. You're a great interviewer. Congratulations on
Oh, that's
everything.
nice. I appreciate that. That means a
Yeah.
lot. Especially from a guy coming from you. You asked all the right questions, man.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you are as good as it gets, seriously.
Thank
And
you.
you know what I love about you is that nobody knows what side of the aisle you're on. Right? You're as unbiased as it comes, and that's hard. That's hard to do in the political scheme.
Well, I think it's important. I don't like the phrase unbiased because I think everybody has biases because they're human beings. But I think the most important thing is to be fair
Mhm.
and to try to be respectful to people and give everybody a platform and treat everybody with a sense of dignity and listen to them and all of that. So I think that's important. By the way,
September 14th, a big day in California. I think I think the way California goes, the rest of the country goes. I don't think people realize that, and maybe some of the world. Fifth largest economy in the world. A lot going on in the state. A lot of people angry, upset. Um, how do you think that day is going to go?
Well, I mean, I think it's important first off to remind everybody that it's not just September 14th. September 14th is the last day to vote, but we sent out 22 million ballots in the mail already. There have already been over 3 million ballots that have been turned in, people that have already voted. So, it's a rolling election. And the fact that that has happened, I think, will impact what we see on September 14th. It's also quite possible that on September 14th, because we've had so many millions of vote by mail, and that's a more complicated process of counting them, that we may not know the answer on that night, may not know the answer for weeks after that. I mean, for the really close congressional races in California in the last election, I mean, it was 2 or 3 weeks before we sort of had a better picture of where things are going to go. But on the broader question, which is what you're getting at, which is the importance of the recall, I mean, it is the biggest and most important election in America this year. So goes California, so goes the nation, is, I think, true if you look big picture in terms of California is often a preview of the future of what's coming next. In terms of certainly the entertainment industry and technology, even being able to do something like this over Zoom, obviously a California company. But then in terms of politics, I mean, we had, a celebrity reality show kind of person leading our state before the country did. A lot of the thoughts in terms of policy sort of emanate from here first. And so if there was a Republican governor of the bluest state in the country, that would send shockwaves across the entire country and really come at a precarious moment for the Democratic Party. I mean, look at what the Democrats are dealing with right now. Not only the Afghanistan mess and also the situation with COVID, but then the other biggest Democratic governor in the country, Andrew Cuomo, just leaving office. So going into the midterms, it would really be a disastrous thing for the Democratic Party writ large if Gavin Newsom were to lose, and also obviously a big problem here in California.
I feel like either way, right or left, if you go too right, people start to wake up and say, whoa, take it easy, calm down. You go too left, people, whoa, take it easy, calm down. I think that's kind of happening now, don't you think? I think things are kind of getting like way to the left, and people start to kind of wake up and rise and say, man, enough is enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, social media has changed the political game just like it's changed the game for everything. And the problem is that Twitter is not really representative of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's representative of the extremes. Like, what does well on Twitter? Super aggressive, loud, crazy, confrontational moments, super emotional comments that can get amplified. So like if the candidate that did the best on Twitter won, like Andrew Yang would be president and be mayor of New York, right? He's great on Twitter. But like Joe Biden, who had like the least social media followers or among them of anybody, who I don't think even knows how to open Twitter. He won.
Twitter.org.
Right. He won. Yeah. He won the presidency and beat a lot of these other people. And so you got to remember that the country, even though these extremes on the right and the left are amplified not only on social media, but also in cable news and other places as well, the country is still pretty center. And whenever we go too far one way, we like to go back to the other way. I mean, look at the presidents that we chose. I mean, you go from Barack Obama, a Harvard educated Black man who's also half white, who's a super intellectual, sort of gentleman, once married person. And then we go to Donald Trump, a reality show, 3 times married, sort of anti-intellectual in a way, but also, from you. I mean, like could those two guys be more different? I mean, could they be more different? And could Joe Biden be more different than Donald Trump too? So there is a part of America that likes to go back and forth, which is why I think this recall has a chance of succeeding, is because I think that Gavin Newsom has become the face for a lot of people of all that's sort of wrong with establishment politics in California, fairly or unfairly, whether he should or shouldn't be, he has been. And there's something easy, Colin Jost's book is right, punchable face. I've got a punchable face or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there's something about Newsom that he's kind of has like a punchable face, right? Like, I mean, he's a guy that's easy to hate, right? He's super tall and handsome and smart and successful and wealthy and all of that. And I think at a time when a lot of people are struggling, that image, that French Laundry image of this elitism, I think has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and has been politically problematic for him.
So I'm sure a lot of people know, but let's remind them, September 14th is the day, or maybe 2 weeks after that. They don't know yet. It's a 50% plus one vote of yes or no. And if it's no, obviously he's back in office. If yes, then it's the next guy in line who could become governor of the state. The polls that I've seen.
Yeah, there are two questions on the ballot. Question one, should Gavin Newsom be recalled? You got to get over 50% for that to happen. Question two, if Governor Newsom is recalled, who should replace him? There's 46 names on that ballot, and whoever gets the most votes wins. It's not a 50% thing. It's not, we're going to do a runoff afterwards. It's whoever gets the most. So if Larry Elder gets 20%, and Kevin Faulconer gets 19%, Larry Elder, with only 20% of the vote, becomes governor. And you could have a scenario, theoretically, where, 49% of California votes no on the recall, which means that the Newsom has gotten all those votes, and then 20% vote yes on Larry Elder, and Larry Elder wins.
Right. The polls show 50-50, man. 49-51 isn't wrong, which you just mentioned, right? And is it that tight? You're on the ground. Do you see it that way too?
Well, look, I think it's very hard to understand who's going to vote in this election because we've never done anything like this before. I mean, the variable that's different, even versus 2003, the only recall election that we've had, is mail-in ballots, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that hard to vote. Everybody is given a ballot and you just have to send it in. It's a much heavier lift to, on one day, go to the polls, wait in line, all the rest of the thing. It's a much easier thing with, over the span of a month, you fill out one bubble and turn it in. You don't even have to pay for postage. Mm-hmm. So look, the state is way more Democratic than it is Republican. There are twice as many Democrats in this state as Republicans. A Republican hasn't won statewide office since 2006 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if Democrats vote really at all, they should win. I mean, Gavin Newsom won in 2018 with the largest margin of any governor ever. He won by 24 points. Joe Biden won by 30 points over Donald Trump. So if Democrats vote, they should win. What we've seen on the ground, what we've seen in the polls, is that Republicans are more fired up than Democrats. I should point out, though, in the early ballots, the actual voting, right now, we've gotten about 3 million ballots back, and they are breaking overwhelmingly Democratic. We're seeing huge turnout from places like San Francisco. Now, we could see Republicans vote late. That doesn't mean, they prefer to vote in person. They prefer to vote late. But what we're seeing so far, which may not be an indication of anything, is that Democrats are turning out in pretty significant numbers.
It might be the Republicans not voting, not trusting the voting process, and maybe handing those ballots in. What do you think about the voting process? Do you trust the voting process?
Yes, I trust the voting process. I mean, look, there are flaws in everything, but there have been lots of studies and lots of examinations of this, and there has been no clear evidence of voter fraud in California, widespread, or really anywhere in the country. There's a process of signature verification. I've been in the building where they count these ballots. I mean, they look at each one of them. They try to match the signature to the signature on record. There is a sort of exhaustive process to try to break down fraud. And we have not seen major problems, despite the fact that so many people have looked at this. Even President Trump, with his repeated claims of voter fraud during the last election, they had lots of lawsuits where they had opportunity to present evidence of it, and they were never able to present evidence enough to convince even the Republican judges that looked at it.
You mentioned Larry Elder. He seems to be the guy with the most momentum. I think if he's not running, this thing is in the bag for Newsom. People are really getting behind Larry Elder. I think people are just done with the politician, man. You go back to Ronald Reagan, you go to Donald Trump, you go to the Schwarzenegger. I think people are just done with the politician. They like the business mind, maybe the guy who's been on radio for 27 years, who just makes a lot of sense. What do you think about that?
I think Larry Elder cuts both ways. He's really good at doing what we're doing right now. He's a great communicator, right? And he speaks to people in a way that people can understand. He calls it talking to Joe, a Jones six-pack. And I think there's a real value in that because people talk like a politician. People don't want to hear that. It's been a struggle, I think, for Kevin Faulconer, the former mayor of San Diego, who has been a politician for decades and talks like a politician. He doesn't want to make mistakes. He wants to be precise, all those sort of things. Larry Elder is just like, let's cut through the BS and here's what I have to say. And I'm not going to back off from what I have to say. And I think a lot of people are fired up by that. But Larry Elder is also really conservative in a state that's not really conservative. And a lot of his positions are not in line with where the mainstream of the Democratic Party in California has been for a long time. And so, yes, Larry Elder animates people on the right to vote, clearly, but he also may animate people on the left to vote. The Newsom team has chosen as their strategy right now, whether it's a smart strategy or a dumb strategy, we'll see. But they have decided, with all of the money and all of the political expertise that they have, that their best strategy at this point is to attack Larry Elder and to try to turn him into Donald Trump and to try to say that his positions are so extreme that you may not love me, you may not love what we're doing, but you really want that. That's the alternative. It's going to be him. And you don't want somebody who's, against the minimum wage, who doesn't think that women should have maternity leave. They pointed to a lot of his most controversial comments that he's made over 30 years. And they're trying to put that out as much as possible. Will that work? We'll see.
He's been on your show a few times. The issue is LA Times came out and said he's the black head of white supremacy.
Right.
Do you think that the amount of times you met him?
No. I mean, and I think that also is a bad strategy for the Times or the people at the Times. And the Times is a lot of different reporters with a lot of different agendas. So it's hard to just say one person. That was one columnist at the Times, Erica Smith. But if your objective is for Gavin Newsom to stay in office and for Larry Elder not to be in office, I think there's a real danger in going too far in attacking him, where you make him more of like a martyr and a victim, and it just, gives his base reason to be even more excited and come to his defense. I mean, Donald Trump was the master of this strategy, which is his base doesn't like the media. So when the media attacks him, he was able to convince them that they were really attacking them.
Mm.
That they don't want you to be in power, that I represent you, I represent, I'm fighting for you, and they're trying to take you down. And Larry Elder's pretty good at doing that, at flipping the script on that. And so I think if you come at Larry Elder more than any of the rest of them, because he's really good at doing this, you got to be so precise in quoting him directly, in being super fair and giving him an opportunity so that he can't make his response about you and why you're terrible. Because, like any good politician on both sides, they're going to look for a way not to have to answer your question. If they can make it about you, then they have scored, and then they can distract from the issue. You got to be really, really, really good in the way you come at him if you're going to come at him.
He's a hell of a debater.
Yeah.
Right? Like his facts, his stats, his numbers, his quotes, the guy is bright. So you're 100% right. You got to be on your game if you're going to attack a guy like that. Let's say he wins. What would you think an LA Times headline would be that morning?
Political earthquake. Larry Elder shocks, the political establishment and becomes governor of California. I mean, it would be a seismic event and it wouldn't only be a headline in the LA Times. It'd be a headline in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and it would be reported on in London and Paris and China. I mean, it would be something that would be a huge deal all around the world.
Have you mailed your ballot in?
I haven't yet.
What are you going to do?
Have you?
I have.
I will never say what I'm going to do. There's no benefit in me saying that. What are you? Do you want to say what you're going to do?
I am I'm ready for a change. I'm ready. Yeah, I am. I think it is time. Actually getting there. I'm happy you asked this question because I want to put you in that. I want to put your shoes in that role. If you were governor of California and COVID hits your state and the world, what are you doing? I mean, initially I get it, right? We shut down. We're in this together. Let's figure this thing out. Now we're two and a half years away, or a year and a half from it. What are you doing in terms of mask mandates, vaccine mandates? What would you do?
Well, I mean, I'm not the governor, but
well, I think one day you could be, man.
Oh
you keep going. I think one day you could be. Seriously.
I think it's a complicated thing because as most of the politicians that you talk to say, they're basically building the airplane at 30,000 feet. There's no manual for this sort of thing. You do try to follow the science, and the science does change too. And that's the scientific process. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the challenge right now is the Delta variant is real, and it's different than what we were seeing in terms of the actual facts on the ground 6 months ago. It is more transmissible. It is it's a different scenario. So some of the policies that we're seeing, if you just are looking at real performance right now of California versus New York or Texas in this moment, I mean, you could have a debate about 6 months ago when Delta variant wasn't there and the science was different. That's another debate. In this moment right now, it is objectively true that California is performing better than Florida, Texas, Louisiana, other places where they don't have some of the vaccine mandates and mask mandates in place. And especially you are seeing real outbreaks in Florida, like in classrooms where they don't have mask mandates in place. So I think it's important to actually follow the science. And I think some of the criticism of the governor in the middle of the pandemic was that maybe he wasn't. And I think that that's an evolving thing, and it's hard. And the problem when you do things where people think you're not following the science is you start to lose trust. And I think there are people on the Democratic side and Republican side that have decided to stop listening to the people that they disagree with. And that's a really dangerous place to be. You want people to, when you say something, feel like you're giving them the truth. And there aren't a lot of people like that. I mean, at the beginning of this, I think Dr. Anthony Fauci was seen that way. And then he's become such a political figure where people are just ignoring him on the right. Here in Southern California, we have this earthquake expert named Lucy Jones, who comes out after every big earthquake and is sort of and I interviewed her this week, and I realized like she's one of the few people left in our culture where everybody kind of respects her, and she tells it to you straight, and she tells you the bad news, but tells it in a really straight way. And I don't think there's enough of that, enough of a feeling of somebody's leveling with you. And I wish that the governor, the mayor, the president, other people, you felt more like they were more coming from a center place of leveling with you, and then you might be more willing to go with them on other things.
You said earthquake expert.
Yes.
Is a big one coming?
Well, of course, a big one could always be coming. That's
Okay.
the question. It could happen right now while we're in the middle of recording this podcast. The challenge of living in earthquake country, all these other stories become much smaller. That is the biggest story of all.
You know, you said it best though. You tweeted it out a couple weeks ago and said, "Why isn't anybody talking about taking your vitamins? Why isn't anybody talking about getting good sleep? Why isn't anybody talking about getting exercise?" You know, and those are the things, right? Build your immunity, do it the right way. Viruses come and go. I get it. This one is completely different. It's off the table in terms of comparing it to any others. But why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't health experts coming out and telling you that?
Right. And why aren't we doing more as a society to incentivize a healthier lifestyle? So why, we have the tax code, which we can use to make things to enhance our priorities as a country. Like we've decided there's a value in having children, and so we have a child tax credit. Like, why isn't there a tax credit for joining a gym
Yes.
or personal training? Why can't that be tax deductible? Why aren't we doing more to subsidize bringing healthy food choices into low income neighborhoods, which really do have it's very hard to find healthy food choices in those neighborhoods, which are some of the neighborhoods that struggle with obesity the most. And if it is there, it's out of reach for people. So if we're able to subsidize farmers, why can't we subsidize some people in those neighborhoods in terms of having a healthier outlook? Why can't we work more with insurance companies and trying to, give maybe points for your insurance cost if you're able to hit certain fitness metrics? I'm not talking about, fat shaming or, attacking the body positivity movement or anything like that. And I know that weight is not necessarily an indication of how healthy you are.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am talking about is doing more to incentivize good behavior. I'm not saying punish bad behavior, but incentivize good behavior. We as a society come together and make the declaration that being healthy is a good thing. And it's been really absent from most of the conversation about COVID, I think entirely for political correctness reasons. The real impact of obesity on your outcome if you have COVID. And it is just if we're talking about following the science, that is part of the science. So yes, getting a vaccine is important. Yes, wearing your mask in certain situations makes sense. Yes, keeping your distance, all of that is true, but it's also true that yes, being healthy and having good cardio strength and everything else can also help you in a major way. And that should be talked about.
You need to calm down because you're making too much sense, and you might be off the air soon. But going back, it's the trust thing, and what happens there is that pharmaceutical industry. What happens to them if you're not relying on pills and the stuff that they're putting in your body? Pharmaceutical industries go away, and the pharmaceutical industries mostly pay the guy, the big politician, to get them into office, and
right. Our system is set up as a system, and this is a whole bigger concept conversation, but our system is really set up as a sick care system instead of a healthcare system. And so right now, the financial motive is for you to be alive, but not entirely healthy, so that you take pills, that you need to go to, the doctor for a certain amount of treatment, that you need to do things, because that's how these people get paid. That frankly is the bigger argument for why we should do, basically what some would say is socialized medicine. And there's the whole debate there about that's a complicated thing. And I'm not going to weigh in one way or another on that. But that gets to that argument of whether is it different? Should the profit motive be taken out of healthcare because it is a different industry than any other kind of industry?
You were into politics early in your life, man. I think you were the high school president, right?
Was, yeah.
Look at
Yeah, I
you.
was my middle school president too.
Look at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
What is it about politics that you enjoy?
Look, I think that there are a few different things that I like. First off, I think it's one of the best opportunities to actually change people's lives. I mean, we talk so much about the back and forth and the personalities, and all that is super interesting too. And I think just from a a psychological perspective and anthropological perspective, it's interesting to get into people's heads and see all the drama and all that. But at the baseline, like what's most interesting about it is the chance to make people's lives better on a really wide scale um, way. And also, the reverse is true. If the wrong person is in there, they really have an opportunity to make people's lives worse. So, it's often covered as sport and talked about as sport. And I love sports. I'm a huge LA sports person and could do an entire podcast just on that, which is like really my favorite thing to talk about. But the difference is like when Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, like the next week, everybody goes back to their life and, it is what it is. But like if Joe Biden or Donald Trump wins the presidency, like that's impacting all of our lives in a pretty profound way for the next 4 years. And those choices will be felt for decades. So there's really, really high stakes and a real opportunity to make change in politics.
And you can probably mention the first president to the 46th president. You probably can't mention the first Super Bowl winner to the current Super Bowl winner, right?
Me personally,
Yeah, but in general too.
Could you do?
Yeah,
Yeah, could you do?
No, we're not going there. No, we're not going.
Okay.
I go to like the last 10. But no, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that how it goes?
Right. I mean, there's times where it's like if somebody asked you who won the Super Bowl 3 years ago, it would take you a moment
That's
to
right.
think about it, even though on that day, that's the biggest thing that America watches. Everybody is tuned in. That's your whole world for that day. And then sometimes 2 weeks later, it's like, who was that? What? Like, who? And somebody played at halftime. And
Right.
yeah, so there is an aspect of that that's very different.
Remember the days when stuff would just happen? Nobody gave a shit. Like we're kids and we had no idea what was going on. Nowadays, I'm having a full-on conversation with a 7-year-old about politics. What the hell happened?
Are you? See, I was into it at 7, so I don't remember
okay, that
those
was you.
days. That was me.
But it's so much more intense, though. Like everybody knows about what's happening. I don't like it. I don't like it. I enjoy politics. I do. I really do. But I just don't like the fact that everybody is so into it and everybody's divided because of it. And you find out if you're on the left or the right, you're on the left or the right, and they're on the opposite side, you're no longer friends because of it. I just, it's bad.
That's a really bad part of it. And I think, whether Trump was the cause of that or just an expansion of that, I mean, he certainly increased that, but you have all of these things happening at the same time. Social media, the expansion of cable news, talk radio, the increasing of podcasts. And what you've had in this country in the last really 10 years is the echo chambers have gotten louder and the center has gone away. So when everybody just has a few TV channels or everybody, you get one newspaper in town and everybody's looking at it, right? Everybody's watching the evening news or everybody's looking at that one newspaper. You have a chance to see and be exposed to things that you might not agree with or might not choose. So if you're looking at the LA Times as a paper, the hard copy paper, in order to get to the sports page, which was always the one I wanted to look at first, right? You got to look at the front page though, because you got to scroll through to get there, and you might come across something that you didn't think you would look for, but was like, oh, that's interesting, or you might learn something in the process. Now you can just have the sports update sent to you as a status alert, or you can, just go into the sports page or just look at the tweet of the LA Times article and not even look at the rest of the paper. And so what you have had happen is that, any sort of outside perspective that you're not already agreeing with has been filtered out. And the perspectives that you do agree with that only enhance your perspective are being amplified because that's what the algorithms say that you want. And so we're not talking to each other, and we're not even, we don't even have the same facts. I mean, there was a point where if everybody's watching the same show, at least you can say, okay, this is happening. What should we do about it? Now we're having a debate about whether it's happening.
Would you ever run for a political position?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. if the right situation happened. I mean, I think I've learned in doing this up close that it's not as pretty as it looks.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't love the all the fundraising involved, but if the right position at the right time and all of that, maybe.
It's cancer. It's cancel culture era. You talk about sticky subjects and politics. Are you ever worried about slipping up?
It's difficult, right? I mean, it feels like every day you're walking on a tightrope and you just hope you don't fall. And especially you got to be careful in social media, which I don't always do a good job on because sometimes the trolls really,
Mhm.
I find it fun to take on the trolls, which is probably not a healthy hobby on the side. And then, but then they try to interpret everything.
But
So I
Alex,
think
where do you get your trolls from though? Because you're talking to people on both sides of the aisle.
well, honestly, where I get my trolls from, and the number one thing that I like to respond to them is, it's people that don't watch.
Hmm.
It's people that see some tweet. Say, this week I interviewed Tommy Lahren on the right and Ethan Bierman on the left for The Issue Is. I mean, really strong, smart people advocating for their side, and both sides, kind of the opposite of what I was just saying. People that listen to Tommy probably don't get to hear the left argument that much. People
Sure.
that listen to Ethan don't get to hear the right argument that much. So you actually get to hear both arguments, which I think is helpful. But somebody might just see just the clip of Tommy and say, "How dare you have her and not show
Mm,
other
mm.
side?" Or just the clip of Ethan, "You're just carrying water for Democrats," and blah blah blah. And then I say, "Well, did you see the rest of it?" I mean, yesterday I tweeted out a revelation about Larry Elder, which some might say is not that positive of him, and like, "How dare you carry the water for the Democrats?" Well, did you see the interview I did with Larry Elder 3 days ago that he tweeted out and said was fair? No, because of course not.
Yeah.
So like, there's people that make assumptions about our show because we're on Fox,
Mm.
negative or positive. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but because the media ecosystem is so scattered, people will, even something on Twitter, if you post a video, people don't even necessarily watch the video. They'll just read the first sentence of the tweet, not even the second sentence, because people are scrolling so much. I mean, something yesterday, I tweeted out this monologue I did at the end of the show honoring our troops,
Mm.
which I was passionate about. And I think
It was very
our
good.
editor, Debbie, did a great job. And I hope if somebody is listening to this, check out my social media if you want to watch it. And I appreciate you commenting nicely on it as
Yeah,
well.
it was awesome.
So somebody on Twitter wrote, you know, this is something that they would never say on Fox as sharing it out. And so my response was, this is literally from Fox. Like,
Jeez. Yeah.
no idea. So,
Yeah.
that sort of thing is what I see a lot of on Twitter. And the sort of ignorance is what's annoys me.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom, you met with him a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
How did you take that? How did you take him, his energy, his persona? Does he seem worried? What did you get out of it?
I think he seems a little worried at this point, and I think we had a political analyst who's super smart named Mike Murphy, who hosts a great podcast called Hacks on Tap on a few weeks ago, and the issue is, and he made me think about this in a way that I hadn't thought of it before. He said, Gavin Newsom is an attack puppy, not an attack dog. He's a sunshine
Mm.
politician who likes to talk about, likes to have the sun on his face, talking about the positive, talking about the vision ahead. Not somebody who I think really enjoys this idea of let's do an opposition research dump on Larry Elder and just talk about the negative and the other side is scary. I don't think that's where he's happiest. I mean, he's happy in the weeds of budget negotiations, and I mean, he literally will give 3 or 4 hour budget presentations without looking at notes.
Mm.
He was really, really happy on June 15th and June 16th when he reopened the state and he got to play game show host and give away money. And we were at Magic Mountain and he's like, "Come on a roller coaster with me." Like, I've never seen him so happy. He was so happy because it felt like state was moving forward. He had $76 billion to spend. The recall numbers were way low. It looked like a joke at the time. And everything was going on his way. People were taking off the masks, and it looked like happy days are here again. The economic forecasts for California were amazing, and I've never seen him happier, having covered him for 10 years than then. And then just a few weeks later, the Delta variant comes back, the crime numbers go up. The recall numbers show really strong. Larry Elder, who nobody thought was going to run, comes and becomes this force. And you could feel it. It's like, whoa, we
Yeah.
might actually lose this thing.
Came at him
And
quick.
I think for him, I think he's also genuinely irritated at the process, the fact that this recall is even happening and that our laws in California allow this to happen, whereas almost every other state in the country, something like this would not be allowed because of the rules.
What type of rules? What's different than the
Meaning
other
it's
states?
easier to recall somebody in California. It's a lower threshold.
Mm.
We had these reforms that were put in place by Hiram Johnson back in the
Mm.
early part of the 20th century to allow for a recall, and also allow, it's easier in California to get a ballot proposition on the ballot. I mean, there's these processes. I mean, I think you need 12.5% of California voters in the last election to sign a petition to have a recall. So, that's the mark that they hit. He would say, but I won by 24%, the largest margin ever. There's an election next year. If you really want to take me out, do it next year. Don't spend $250 million of taxpayer dollars. And while I'm having to battle, in his mind, the global pandemic, record wildfires, everything else that's happening from the state, he's now having to spend a lot of his time dealing with this, which I think, views as a distraction.
Mm.
But it's also an existential crisis for him now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Who you got coming up next week on the issue?
I don't know. I think it's, the last 2 weeks of I intentionally haven't booked yet. The last 2 weeks are of the recall. I mean, I'd love to have Governor Newsom back and love to have Larry Elder for in-depth combos. We'll see. I'm talking to Kevin Faulconer tomorrow out on the campaign trail. But this is kind of the go time. I mean, it feels like this is time to really narrow in and not do some of the other sort of distraction circus aspects of it, and really have a real conversation at what's at stake. I mean, no matter what, Gavin Newsom and Larry Elder offer dramatically different visions for what this state is going to look like. And they're very high stakes here. And people think of it as a circus, and you think of John Cox with the bear or Caitlyn Jenner's reality show or all the rest of it. And it's easy to sort of dismiss this as theater, but this thing really will impact a lot of people's lives. And so however you vote, my always thing is, get educated, understand what's at stake, and then be a part of it. And don't let somebody else, don't wake up on September 15th on either side and be like, whoa, if only I had my say. I mean, I remember interviewing people in the streets of New York, because I went to Hillary Clinton's election night viewing party to cover it for ABC at the time. And the next day, these massive protests in front of Trump Tower, and all these people that I talked to, and a lot of them I asked, I'm like, did you vote? And they said, no, I didn't think that I needed to. Now, New York went for Hillary anyways. But point being, I think there were a lot of people that thought it's somebody else's job. It's somebody else's job to get out there and vote. I don't have to think about it. This recall is not a real thing, or either way. And don't be that person. Have your say.
So have you not turned in your ballot because you still want to talk to them personally and find out what you want to do?
Yeah, I think that's
you're
part
still
of it.
uncertain.
Well, I think there's value in, I mean, I know I'm going to turn in my ballot because this is my thing, but I think sometimes things come up that you didn't expect. I mean, look at the California election the last time around for president. If people remember, there was that crazy, Super Tuesday, or no, crazy turn of events where Joe Biden won South Carolina and it looked like he was politically dead. And then all these other people dropped out and endorsed him. But like, there were a lot of people in California that had already voted for Pete Buttigieg, who had dropped out of the race by then, or Amy Klobuchar, or other things. Like, there are things that happen and they couldn't get their ballot back. They couldn't re-vote. So I think if you're really considering question 2, which Gavin Newsom is telling you not to consider, but I think everybody should vote on whether they vote for the recall or not, which I've said publicly and said to Gavin Newsom. then I think there's some value in listening to people. I mean, who knows what people are going to say or what's going to come out in the next couple of weeks.
This is why you shouldn't get trolls, because you're fair and you're not voting on just one side of the aisle. You're
Yeah.
really doing your research, and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing in terms of your personal vote. So people should appreciate you, man. Seriously, you do a
Oh, thank
great
you.
job. I really mean that. Is that a Dr. Drew pillow behind you?
It's it's Dr. Fauci.
Oh,
It is not Dr. Drew, but Dr. Fauci is Dr. Drew's North Star and his hero. And I did get him a Dr. Fauci bobblehead, which he loves and he uses as part of his broadcast setup. And Dr. Drew actually bought me this microphone because I used to complain about my microphone envy for him. So he brought this for me. Yeah.
what a guy. Seems like a
yeah,
good guy.
yeah.
One more, talking about recalls. Gascon, is that in the works as well?
There is an active recall for George Gascon, for some of your listeners might know, is the LA County District Attorney. He's a very controversial figure, used to be the DA in San Francisco. Has a very progressive agenda, which has frustrated some people, including a lot of Democrats. There's an active effort to recall him. There's also an effort underway to recall at least two members of the LA City Council, it may be up to three, for some of their policies, Mike Bonin, Nita Rahman. That issue is looking at homelessness. Yeah, Gascon, we'll see if they hit the requisite number of signatures. Something that really helped the Newsom recall people, the people that were trying to recall Gavin Newsom, is a judge gave them several extra months because of the pandemic to do it. So there was a 4-month extension, which allowed them to get over the hump in terms of signatures. That isn't going to happen for Gascon. So it's still a lot of signatures. It's hard to get people, outside of Vaughn's, or, to stop and sign. I don't want to stop for anything when people are asking me. It's even hard for me to stop for the Girl Scouts, So,
or a stop
so,
sign nowadays.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge to do it. But I think that if the recall of Gascon qualifies, I think there's a real shot that he will be recalled by the people of LA County. I think that race is an example of a lot of what we were talking about a moment ago. I think there are people that are excited about Gascon and his policies, but he's not doing anything that he didn't say. He is following through on the promises that he made. The problem is not enough people actually listened to what he was saying. They were just like, we don't want Jackie Lacey or Black Lives Matter is saying this, whatever. And they didn't take the time to wait, what? And then when he got in there, he lays out his plans, which is all the stuff he said, and people were shocked. And it was like, why didn't you pay attention to the before? And so I think it's a reminder to listen to what people are saying when they're saying it to you, and think about whether that's something you want at the time, before it's too late.
Comparing Newsom's recall, I think they needed 2.1 or 2.2 votes. Comparing it to Gascon, I think it's only 500,000, right?
So Newsom's you're talking about how many signatures that are
Signatures, not
needed
votes, signatures.
for the
Yeah.
recall to qualify. Newsom's was 1.5 million. I'm not sure if it's 500,000 for Gascon, just because my own ignorance, and I've been so into the Newsom world that I don't know. So I don't want to say the wrong figure. But what you're saying would make more sense. I mean, California is a state of 40 million people, 22 million registered voters. LA County is 10 million people, so it would be a lower threshold because there are less voters in LA County. But LA County is by far the biggest county in California. 1 out of 4 people in California live in LA County, even though there are 58 counties. So it's just a sort of a monster, and is larger than many, many states. And that job, LA County DA, is an incredibly powerful job.
Yeah. Alex, I can't thank you enough. I pronounced your name correctly, right? Alex?
You got it.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Mike, did I pronounce your name correctly?
That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Okay.
I appreciate you very much, man. And I'm going to say it again. You do an excellent job. Keep doing your thing. We're lucky to have you down here. And you took your Sunday out for me. So go get out of here. Go enjoy the beach. It's a freaking gorgeous day outside.
I'm going to the beach. But if
Yeah.
people want to follow my stuff, they can check it out in social media at Elex Michaelson. That's Elex with an E, not an A, or on YouTube. Send me your stuff. And if people want to watch, The Issue Is, it airs all over the state of California, but in LA, it's Fridays at 10:30 on Channel 11. and then weeknights 5, 6, 7, and 10 on Fox 11 as well. So thank you.
The issue comes on 3 times on my DVR, by the way. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, thank you for setting it with that thing, and enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah. Thanks, man. God bless you, man. I appreciate you very much.
All right. Have a great day. Keep up the great work on the show.
I appreciate you. Thanks, man. Once this is up, I'll shoot you an email when it's up, and then you can share it, and I'll of course tag you on social.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much. Good
Thanks,
job,
man.
and nicely done with the suit.
Hey, I even got the necktie here.
Yeah, look at that. Nicely tied. All right. Bye.
All right, man. Thank you. Take care.